Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jay, and today's show review is Cobra Kai. Now, I don't normally make qualitative reviews, my reviews are more summative, but this show is so good I felt I had to voice my opinion on this matter. I mean, what makes the show great? I think what it really comes down to is how relatable and sympathetic the main characters are. The story starts 30 years after the events in 1984. Johnny Lawrence lost the All Valley tournament, and ever since then, his life has taken a dismal turn for the worse. To start his day, the first thing he does is grab a beer. He lives by himself in an empty existence, in a crappy apartment, and in a job he can't stand.
You're firing me because of that bitch? You know what? I hated this damn job anyway.
I mean, who hasn't had days like this, or just felt really down and out in life, which is why his character just feels so human. And it's in the arc of redemption and turning his life around that we feel so much for him.
I admit Cobra Kai had its share of problems in the 80s. But my Cobra Kai is different. It's a place where kids can come and feel like they belong. Where they won't get picked on just because they're a bunch of losers. I've watched firsthand as my students have gotten stronger, gained confidence, learn how to stand up for themselves. Cobra Kai is making a difference in these kids' lives. And honestly, they're making a difference in mine as well.
And in season 1, we see him fight back. He fights back against the conditions that malign him so much. He fights for his respectability, his prominence, but most of all, he fights for the community which he so endearingly loves. Specifically, one person in particular.
That kid is the only person in the world who hasn't given up on me. And I don't want to give up on him. I know I messed up big time. But if you let him come back, I won't fail him again. I promise.
And I can't stress how much I love how dynamic these characters are. They're not static props or plot conveniences for writers and directors to showcase. They have character arcs, development, and human growth.
What does a Cobra do?
And although season 1 deals with the rise of Cobra Kai, the rebirth if you will, season 2 very much deals with the returns of some demons, most notably in the form of John Kreese, who is a personification of Johnny's demons. And how those demons could come back and manifest itself into such tragedies. Because with the rise, season 2 culminates with a fall. And so season 2 left you with such a dark ending, such a cliffhanger that I couldn't wait to see season 3. Here Johnny is in the lowest point he's ever been in his life. He's lost his dojo, he's more estranged from his son than ever before, and the one person that believed him is now in critical condition. And so now Johnny finds himself fighting to rise again, but this time the stakes are much higher. This generation of Cobra Kai and its malignancies were his creation. Distraught and wallowing in misery, he finds the strength to rise again. To fight back, not for himself, but to keep the promise he would not fail him again.
Yeah, it's one of the most painful things in my life. But one of the best things has been teaching you. And I want you to know, no matter what happens, I promise, I'll always be on your side. And I'll always have your best interests at heart. Thank you.
And each dojo is not just a school for learning, but is in fact a family. Miguel has become the surrogate son with close ties, which is ironic considering Johnny's relation with his actual son is so distant.
He is your father. And believe me, you're lucky to have one. You just gotta try to remember he's not a monster. He's just a guy with a lot of demons. Mr. Miyagi always told me there's no such thing as a bad student. Only a bad teacher. And your dad had the worst teacher there ever was. It sent him down a wrong path.
And speaking of Kreese, whereas season 1 and 2, the role of antagonist would flip-flop between Daniel and Johnny, season 3 made it clear that the real villain is John Kreese. But like any great story, the villain does have sympathetic qualities. Kreese had his own bully to deal with, and reasons why he does what he does. His backstory is compelling as any other character in this series. And it's clear through the events of his life why he is so hardened and the way he is. Through it all, he will not let his family succumb to weakness.
The hell do you think you're doing?
What does it look like? I'm teaching my students.
Your students.
You let them down when they needed you the most. Somebody needed to remind them what it takes to win.
And whereas Kreese is a demon on Johnny's shoulders, in contrast we have Mr. Miyagi, who is an angel on Daniel's.
Hey, Mr. Miyagi. It's funny. When I was a kid, you seemed to always have all the answers, and I guess I thought when I got older I'd have it all figured out too.
You can always visit someone. They speak to us, even when they're gone. That was the line that prompted Daniel to revisit some old memories and go back to Okinawa. Because in Daniel's dark time, he has a light to go to. And old friends who could shine a light and show the way for him. Even an old rival and enemy reemerges. And so long ago, even though these two fought for life and death, they managed to put aside their differences and finally close the chapter of their resentments. And speaking of reunions, there is one of note of real significance. The return of Ali, the impetus that started the entire rivalry between Johnny and Daniel. And watching them interact and reminisce actually made me feel like a little kid again. Because if there's one thing this show does better than any other, it's that it honors its past. In fact, it builds on its foundation rather than destroy it, which so many other shows have done. Sometimes it's good to visit the past, to know where you are now, but you can't live in the past. You have to live for today and the future. Which brings us to the final point of this video. Johnny has now shedded the skin of Cobra Kai to look to the future to start anew. And in doing so, he buries a rivalry for the promise of not failing his students ever again.